Hello everybody, Neil Gardner here at Ladbroke Audio, and I thought it might be interesting for you to see how I edit audiobooks. It's not going to be a particularly in-depth point-by-point thing. I just wanted to take you through a chapter or part of a chapter of a book I'm currently working on, which will be released by the time this comes out. That way we don't get in any trouble with giving away any secrets of an unpublished book. So this is how a file comes into me first of all. And this was recorded at my studio in Croydon with a very good audiobook narrator who doesn't make too many mistakes. Over on the left hand side you can see the script with the markups which show me different things, and to the left, to the right, you can see various bits and pieces. I'm using Adobe Audition version 3, believe it or not. I've yet to find a better version of Adobe that I like, although I do use the current CC version for other things. But for single track mono audiobook editing, version 3 of Adobe Audition has never been bettered in my opinion, but there are other DAWs out there. So anyways, this is how it's come into me. I've got myself a couple of sight lines at -4 decibels, because I know that titles we produce should never peak above -3, so it gives me a visual cue. First thing I'm going to do is actually turn this up a little bit, so I'm just going to manually raise the volume. Now, I'm halfway through the book, so I know it needs to come up by about 3.5 dB. So just going to do that. And you can see that's just uploading now. Now, I'm also going to use the built-in click remover over here, automatic click remover, to settings I've already set. It's just going to help with some of the mouth noises. Now, one of the things that Ladbroke Audio are best known for is our extremely clean editing. We tend to, in the old BBC style of things, remove an awful lot of noises, so declicking helps, but it's very subtly done, and we always do it before we edit the file, because that way if any damage has been done by the processing, we can undo it and start again. I've also got an extremely low level noise reduction I'm going to use. I'll show you why. If I highlight in, you can see, for example, here there's a little bit of movement noise. There's little bits of movement noise all around. And just to try and save myself a little bit of time, look, there's some more over here. I'm going to automatically remove those. Now, I've set my noise reduction already. I've been using it throughout the book, so I know it's working. So here it is. So I'm going to quick noise reduce. As you'll see in a second, that's going to have removed an awful lot. See, look, we're now fairly clean. What I also have is a 1-second studio tone here, which is ready for me to use. So I'm just going to put that onto my clipboard. Go back to the main file. Now I can see from my script over here that there is a retake on the introduction. There's some notes about this address here, which I know about, so I don't need to worry about that. I know there needs to be a 3-second gap between here and here, and I know there was some noise here and a retake there. So all I need to do is dive in, find the chapter start, which looks like it's there.
Chapter 4.
There we are. So I can remove all of that, replace it with a 1-second studio silence, because the client requests 1 second at the top of every file.
Chapter 40.
The ch is a little loud. I'll bring that down ever so slightly. We're also putting 2/3 of a second gap between the chapter number and the chapter title. So I'm going to delete there.
Chapter 40. Introducing.
And this of introducing is a little loud, so I'm going to highlight it, diminish it.
Introducing Lucy Lovecake.
Now, there's also a click in there, so I'm going to jump to spectral editing mode. I can see that click there.
Cake.
There it is. So using the spot healing tool, remove it. Just get rid of that little bit there.
Cake.
There we are. Gone. So I can see that it looks like we're probably starting here. Let's have a quick listen across again.
Introducing Lucy Lovecake.
There we are. That sounds good. So I'm going to jump over all of that. Put in 1 second silence, 2 second silence, because that's what's requested by the client.
When the contract for French Fancy arrived, I read it 10 times in disbelief. Contract to publish.
There's a little bit of noise there between those. So I'm just going to go in there and use diminish, which I have automatically set up to do -13 dB. So that gets rid of the worst of it without completely putting in silence. We also heard at the end of this S that there's a, I call them glottal stops, there's probably a better term for them.
To publish.
I hate that sound. It is one of the things that bugs me the most. So into spectral, there it is, spot heal, and gone.
Publish.
There's also, we don't tend to leave breaths between sentences and paragraphs, although we leave them within sentences, so we'll clean that up. So what you saw me do there, I'll undo that again, is I highlighted over the breath. I put in my 1 second silence, which is a bit longer than it was before, so I just reduce it back,
The
delete.
content author agreement, hereinafter the agreement,
A bit of noise there, we'll just diminish.
is entered into between Bluebells Limited of Higgledy-Piggledy Farm,
A little bit of noise there. Remove.
Farm, Honeycomb, near Chipping Norton,
I can see there's noise coming up there, so I'm going to remove.
Oxfordshire, oh,
Now that would normally be a breath, I'd leave it, but you can hear the click.
Oxfordshire, oh,
Well, you might not be able to on this phone, but there is a click there, so I'm going to remove that.
OX11 4CX.
Now, there's a long gap here because we had a discussion about whether or not we'd got the correct address there.
Oxfordshire, OX1 5PG.
So that was the old address we thought we might have to put in, but we don't need it, so I can delete all that.
Hereinafter the publisher, and
A little bit of noise there.
and Daisy Delaney of 12B, Rosehip Lane, Primrose Hill, London NW3 4TX. Hereinafter.
So I'm leaving in these little breath noises here because it's all very natural, but there was a clunk there. Can you hear that? Look, there it is. So quickly into Spectral, clean it up, come out.
Hereinafter the author,
We have a little gap there just to give it a break.
represented by Branwell Thornton. Hereinafter the agent.
Again, a little pause for thought.
Hereinafter the author. My proudest moment.
So then we got a paragraph break. So this gives us 3 seconds here. Paste in 3 1-second gaps. I'm going to just bring down that peak there slightly.
I started the Lucy Lovecake blog the weekend after I signed the contract.
And I'm just going to work my way through now, bit by bit. So
What's
here we
she
go.
like,
A little bit of noise.
this Lucy Lovecake?
Out breath, we don't want those.
Why does she have so much advice on dating and all these recipes? Has she had success in the area?
Slightly too long a gap. So we replace it, minimize it.
Has she had success in this area? What age is she? How does she know this stuff?
Little click at the end of that one. Now we can see from the script, know this stuff. There's a pickup on the next sentence coming, so I know to
How
jump
does
ahead.
she know this stuff?
So I can just jump from there, look through the gap. There's the start of the retake.
I didn't want her to be a wide...
So I've actually jumped the retake. So that's why you always go back and check your edit. So I shall now undo.
She could sound oddly bossy if I don't get the tone just right.
So in fact, that was an erroneous markup on the script. Didn't need that one, but that's why you always check.
Just right.
There is a noise on the end of right, so we'll remove that.
Right. I didn't want her to be a wiser, older lady figure, because she had to speak to girls the age of Kitty and I, as well as a little
Click in there. Remove.
as well as a little younger and a bit older than us.
So between sentences, just remove that breath.
She couldn't be like one of those overly prim ladies who endeavours to turn ladettes to ladies.
Now that's a mid-sentence breath. I'm going to keep that, but I'm going to just tighten up the gap, and at the front of it there was a click. So I'm just going to remove that click.
Ladies.
And there's still a little glottal noise inside the S. So just go into there, remove that. And if we go back,
Ladies. But at the same
Nice and
time,
clean.
she should have a feminine, genteel quality, because this book was about turning away from casual sex and turning towards romance.
okay, 2 things there. A little noise in the S of sex.
And turning towards romance.
And we're going to clean up that gap and then clean up that S quickly.
She had to have experience of dating, and how best to get that across. I concluded that she would be most effective as an agony niece figure. I also thought it would make a nice...
So we're just going to tidy up that gap there.
thought it would make a...
Ever so slight pause from the narrator, so let's tidy that
also
up.
thought it would make a nice little format for a blog, that it would open with a problem letter and then move on to her suggested solutions and general tips on that theme.
Tidy that gap.
In her blogs, she could be a little more daring than she was in the book.
A couple of clicks there, so we can see them. There's a click there and a click there. So again, spot healing.
More daring than she was in the book.
These are one of the reasons why I love Adobe Audition version 3, because it has these tools built in. Other DAWs, you have to buy something like RX Isotope. So that's really all I do. I'll just keep working through for a little bit now and just do it for a couple of minutes. You can see how we edit at normal speed. So here we go.
London area. Dear Angela, I think it might be true that there are more girls looking for men than vice versa here in London. Same in New York. Nobody knows why for sure. First off, you should only cook for them if they cook for you. Or if you are happy to cook as a pleasure and it makes sense in the context of the rest of your relationship. One person shouldn't be doing all the work. If you do it under duress, you will soon tire of his demands. Both men and women like to be cooked for because the effort makes us feel loved, appreciated and cared. Because the effort makes us feel loved. Both men and women like to be cooked for because the effort makes us feel loved, appreciated and cared for. The fuss you make of a man in terms of cakes and dinners will only be effective if you are both enjoying the whole relationship. It's also a problem to do things in the early period which you don't want to do throughout the whole relationship. Generally speaking, girls make too much effort too soon, and men build up the effort as they fall more in love. It's worth holding out for a cool customer to warm up. As for the sort of treats and meals you might make at first, cake is always a good one. And the recipe for my first date chocolate cake is at the bottom of this. If you're going to do a full meal, then ask about any allergies or dislikes to avoid disasters. Practice your menu first and stick to something simple like pasta with a sauce. Go for rigatoni or penne rather than spaghetti. Long pasta can get messy, unless that's what you want. Cake works every time, if served at the right moment. That golden or chocolatey mound of scrumptiousness sitting wantonly on your table, whether decorated ornately or naked, save for a dusting of icing sugar on top and a smear of jam in the middle, will always tempt. All of this is sensuous pleasure. This is not about bagging a man in the desperate style of a Jane Austen heroine who has no private income. But in the ways of romance, in terms of our array of love weapons, then food, cakes, deliciousness have their part to play. We have developed an interesting relationship with food due to all the telly food shows we watch. Sometimes we prefer to watch rather than do. We can run to M&S and find a cracking cake, so why bake one? In all matters of food, the effort is a sign of affection. That is why. Cake is love. For our children, our wider families, our lovers. Preparing food, serving food beautifully, communicating over food. These are the practical ways that we can show we care. Good luck, Angelica. Let us know how you get on. Best wishes, Lucy Lovecake. I pressed send to Dominic and waited for his response.
And at the very end, we're adding 2 seconds because that's what the client has asked for. And then we have one edited and cleaned file. And that then gets saved as it is without any more processing. So we're over here. Got quite a lot of files, this one. Then it goes into mastering. Now mastering, well, I use the multi-track mode here, and I've set up some processors, a compressor, which you can see here, very light compressor. That just brings up the lows and keeps the highs under control. Very slight parametric EQ. This is taking an ever so slight amount of low end off and adding a teeny amount at the very top. And then finally a maximizing limiter, so that's basically just saying nothing can go above -3 decibels. And if I've got everything else correctly set up, we should have some nice peaks and nothing much else. It shouldn't be too loud or too quiet. So I shall now bounce that down. So I'll take a few seconds to do that. And halfway. Here we go. It will now show us the new file. There we go. We can compare it to the old one. You see it's come up very slightly. It's also changed its EQ slightly, and we have nothing going above -3. It's a nice transient peaks, so that's perfect. So we can now save that as a master file. Usefully, I can just copy the title from the edited, pop it into masters. That will then get turned into an MP3 file and sent off to a check listener or a QCer, and they'll compare it to the script and tell us if there's anything wrong, if I've missed anything or anything sounds weirdly edited. So that's it. That's how I edit here at Ladbroke Audio, and of course you can use other DAWs. There's Reaper, Pro Tools, the newer versions of Adobe Audition. Other ones will have different ways of doing things, but here in-house we like to be very clean, very specific with things. We like our gaps to be correct, and we like the overall sound to be brought up and warmed and controlled, as you can see with peaking and volume balancing, but also allowing the performer to naturally give it the pacing that they gave it in the studio as much as possible. With some people you do have to alter the pacing ever so slightly, add gaps or take them away, but overall that's pretty much what we do here. So I've been Neil Gardner, this has been Ladbroke Audio, and this is just a quick insight into audiobook editing, and there will be later videos where we go into much more depth about some of the things that you've seen today. But I hope you've enjoyed it. Good luck with your editing, and if you need any help with anything, just drop us a line anytime. Bye!